Okay, peeps, welcome back. So, BCHG and LTCN are either at or very close to support, and we're going to talk about the other grayscale trust too. So, with that being said, let's get it. So, the first thing that we're going to go over here is LTCN. As you guys know, the previous all time high was basically just above $54 here. Reason why I pointed this out to you guys is because we got to the top of this control bar. It clearly did not hold because it sold off massively after that point. Um, yeah, I know that's not actually funny, but I'm just saying that because, yeah, it kind of sucks because I was actually hoping that LTCM was going to go straight up to 100. That would have been nice. I'm sure we all would have loved that, but, this is trading and investing. That's markets don't generally just typically go straight up. As you guys can see, we had gone up for weeks on end at this point. So a pullback was healthy, in my opinion. But anyways, the control bar held, which is not really surprising. So once I am pretty confident that we're going to go back up and retest this, probably not too far off in the future when we do. There might be like kind of a consolidation among that $50 area, and then we'll get like a massive squeeze through that zone straight up to the next level. Or it might just go straight through it. I mean, this is crypto. That does often happen in crypto, as you guys can see back here. We basically were in this zone for 2 weeks, and then the price of LTCN didn't even test it. It just went straight through it. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. But as you guys can see on the MACD here, the histogram is kind of fading a little bit. Generally, when it turns like a lighter shade of green like this, that means that there is a weakening momentum in the bull trend, which is clearly indicative of the price. So anyways, the local peak was at $54. And the previous resistance, which I think is going to be a major zone, as you guys can see, it's been tested multiple times on price here on this massive wick. This red candle kind of bounced off of it before going higher, and then it also got smashed straight through, which is kind of important because this candle actually closed lower than both of these red candles right here. And also, you can barely see it, but a little bit lower than that green candle over there on the left, this one right here. So it is a significant candle, so that's the reason why this resistance is marked as it is. But anyways, that resistance is between roughly about $100 to about $135. So it's quite a squeeze from where the price currently is. I mean, you're talking at least a 3 to 4x. And I know a 3 to 4x in crypto is not much, but again, if LTCN is going to go to at least $500, going from 30 to 500 is a big jump. That's nearly a 17x. And a 17x in crypto is actually really good, especially even in native crypto or in the Bitcoin miners or whatever. That's a good return. So the current support, which still has not been tested yet, is between 23.25 to 26. We'll just call this 26.90. So from the current price, to the recent top here, you got about 76%. From the current price to the resistance above it, it's about 217 to 326%, just to show you guys the potential upside here. If you wanted to wait to get into the zone, you could. I'll just do the measurement from the local low to the local high here. You guys will see it's roughly about 121%. So there's two ways that you could play this. You could either get in now and just say, screw it, I'm just going to buy all in, and I don't care if it goes up, I don't care if it goes down, I'm just going to hold it, wait for it to go up, and maybe take profits later on in the bull run, or whenever you want to take profits. That's up to you. Some people like to bulk buy. We have very specific parameters for what we look for when we choose to bulk buy into a swing trade or something like crypto. It's generally with crypto, because it's so volatile, we choose to DCA. We don't usually bulk buy unless we see something very specific on the charts that tell us that there's a high probability we're going to make money. So you could do that, or you could just DCA down with the assumption that maybe the price is going to come down at this level, or maybe even it comes back down here. In that case, if it came back down here, we absolutely would buy more, and that level is between 13 to about 15.5 bucks. One of the benefits of DCAing down Of course, you could either DCA the same amount as the price drops, or you could get more increasingly aggressive as the price drops. So like for every dollar it drops, you put in like, let's say let's say if your initial investment was, I don't know, $20 a day, we'll just be super conservative here. And it drops another, let's say $1 per share, you put in instead $30 per day, and then another dollar, $40 per day. Obviously I can't tell you what to do with your money, but you kind of see the point here. So you could just DCA down into the zone if you're afraid that it may not get down here and you want to get a piece of the pie. That's an option. So BCHG, this one is within the current support zone. Something I do want to point out to you guys on the weekly here is it does look like the candle's starting to kind of poke below the bottom of this body of this big red candle here. If this red candle closes below this one, closes below this one here, I suspect we're probably going to retest the bottom of this range. It could go lower than that, which is roughly about the $7 to $8 level. That's possible, but I think it's not likely. So again, the current support is between 10 to about 13 bucks. The current resistance is between 18 to about $20. And the previous wick high here is at about 24 bucks. Just so you guys know, the all-time high is at 60. It's possible that BCHG could go as high as $250, but obviously there's no guarantees. So if you guys have not seen our price predictions on all of these different grayscale trusts or price targets, you can go check that out on our channel. You'll see for yourself, but the move would be roughly about 100% on that. So BCHG, just so you know, is at the buy zone. This is what we look for when we choose to start getting in more aggressively. So HZEN, this thing is slowly creeping down towards support. If it does hit support, which at this point I'm thinking it's probably going to, we're going to start buying some more. So that's between 380 to about 420. The resistance is 690 to $8, and the previous wick high up here is 1050 per share. So to go from here down to the support, it's about a 25% drop. If I was going to start buying at these levels, I would just DCA in on the way down. If it was me, I would not buy all in right now, but you guys are free to do what you want. So to move from the ideal support up to resistance about 76%, and then up to the top of that zone 105%, and then to the previous local top about 163%. ETCG, this one has come down a little bit more. It does look like it's going to have a MACD death cross. So I am convinced that this area, roughly between about $11 and I'd say probably about 13 and a quarter. So basically the bottom of this range here is going to hold firmly as support. Of course, this is crypto. I could be wrong about that, but I'd say the probability at this point is low. But then again, if it does crack all of these support zones, well, it's just another buying opportunity. So do keep that in mind. When you're DCAing in, understand that it could actually go below all these and go back down to this level, although I think it's probably not likely. I mean, that's a pretty large drop. We have held this area that I'm talking about here for weeks on end. So anyways, current support is between $13 to about $15.80, and then the resistance above that is about 17.5 to roughly about $20 or so. So if you wanted to get in now, I mean, it is pretty much the ideal time to get in based on the support. It could go a little bit lower, maybe like a couple bucks or something like that. To get back to the top of support is about 18%. Bottom of the resistance 30%, top of the resistance about 48%. So GXLM, this one is having quite a bit of a sell-off actually, and this one is a little bit harder to read because it's I mean, the price action over here is kind of jagged, so I'm going to do the best I can for you guys. Basically, I would say probably the lowest point this thing's going to go is roughly about the top of these candles here. It's about 32 bucks or so, and then the obviously the top of this wedge up here, which it currently sits at, so about 40 bucks. So give or take, probably about $32 to $40 somewhere there is probably where this thing would be expected to bounce. So if you got in somewhere in between the middle of this channel, which I'd say is possible, you'd be looking at about a 46 to 65% move. And then to get up to the previous all-time high resistance, roughly about 105% to 167%. So pretty good move there for GXLM. ETH is still nupping. This thing did have a MACD death cross, so there's honestly no telling how low this could go. It could bounce quickly. It could bounce in a few weeks. We don't know yet, but it's still within this handle pattern. Again, cup and handle, you can see the cup formation here, and then the handle, it's generally a very bullish, this is a bullish price pattern. So usually what would happen is this thing would kind of just chop down in the handle, and then when it's ready to break out, it would break out, and then the measurement pretty much from the bottom of the bottom candle to basically the neckline of the cup and handle would be how you'd measure the target, and the target's all the way up there, $54.50. But do understand that this thing could come back down to this red EMA here, which is about where support is. That's where that gap in price is, and that's also where those candle tops and candle bottoms are. So a lot of testing of price action there. So that's going to be roughly about 17 to 18 bucks. And at this point, unless we end up closing the week above this blue EMA, I would say it's likely to come back down to the zone. Of course, there's no guarantees. It may not touch the zone. It might stop right above it. That's a possibility too. So to go from there to the current price range, or the previous price range, I mean, is about 42% to 66%, and then back up to the previous local high is about 102%. So Zcash, this is definitely an ideal buy right now, in my opinion. So you have support here, and then it got kind of retested right here as resistance. This thing wicked up, didn't even get close to the zone, so obviously it was well protected by that time it was well protected at that time by the bears. Now we're retesting this as support, so that range is going to be between about 440 and 520 ish, and then the resistance 730 to about $8, and the wick high up here is about 10 and a quarter. So just to give you guys an example of how large this move could be, it could be as much as 117%. I mean, if you just wanted to buy now and just hold it all the way back up to that previous high, which is your choice, and not buy anything, you say, okay, I'm just going to put X amount in. This is all I'm going to do. When it gets back up to that high, I'll sell. Some people do that. We've actually done that as swing traders, and we've had a 100% success rate as far as traditional stocks go. But yeah, you could do that. But how you want to go about that is entirely up to you. So GSOL, this thing is still selling down. I suspect it's probably going to go down to somewhere about where the bottom of this wick is. So somewhere in this range of about 172 to about 200 bucks. And the previous high is about 580 or so. Let's just say you got it roughly about 200 bucks. Be conservative here. You'd be looking at about 180% move. So mana, this thing is breaking down further. Once again, I suspect it's probably going to come back into this zone. It could stop at these wicks right here, which is about $27. It's possible, but this is a pretty large red candle. So if it keeps going lower, I'm thinking it's going to definitely hit the support. So that's between about 17 to 2050, the previous all-time high, or yeah, I guess, hold on a sec. So yeah, that is actually the previous all-time high would be about 69, 70 bucks, somewhere in there. Yeah, because I forgot that some of these actually did make new all-time highs, even though we're not yet at the halving. So 263% on that. GBAT, this one has been pulling back for several weeks, but that's good because that gives us another opportunity to buy the dip. Once again, I think this thing's probably going to stop somewhere around $10. I think is likely where the bottom is. You can see it's already wicking up just from the $12 mark, so we're not even at 10 yet, and it looks like buyers are already trying to come in and get into the action, or there might be short sellers covering their positions. I'm not sure, but the move on that would be roughly about 225% to get back up to the previous high. So G-Link, it's looking likely this thing's probably going to come back and test support at this point. It might be having a double bottom here. Or this is not actually a double bottom, but you guys know what I mean, a red to green formation, those of you that know how to day trade. So 65 to 83 is roughly about the support zone. The previous high up here is about 220 bucks. So if you just happen to get your price in the middle of the zone, you'd be looking at about 198% gain. So Phil G, this one is very, very indecisive. It's not really going up or down. I mean, it's a little red, but not as big of a move. Not as big of a move as I would like to see for a potential re-entry. So I think this thing probably gets stopped somewhere between 66 to about 120 bucks. I would say is likely. Let's just say you got your average price at like maybe around 90 bucks. You'd be looking at about a 330% gain, with the peak being up roughly about 400 bucks on that one. So GLIV, this thing is pushing lower. If we get a candle close that's lower than these candle bodies here, but it does not break bearish out of this triangle, I suspect the following week this thing will sell out of the triangle and will come down in price. It's probably likely to stop somewhere between about $26 to about $28 or so, I would say is likely. And if it does that, well, you'd be looking at about 206% move to get from that point up to this point. So before I close this video out, I wanted to show you guys a few more things. We usually don't cover this unless we talk about Bitcoin, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you guys anyways. So it looks like Bitcoin dominance is still going up. Generally speaking, this means one of two things. Either number one, we've entered into the bear market and money is flowing from altcoins back into Bitcoin, which I think is not the case because, again, the halving is still in a couple of days. That doesn't usually happen until after the halving. Or Bitcoin is not done running up yet. It's just cooling off now and money's flowing from alts back into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is at some point this year going to go to much higher highs, as in it's going to go higher than 74,000. That generally also does not happen until after the halving, towards the end of the halving year. And again, the halving is in 2 days. In order to see an alt season where the grayscale, which means that the grayscale trust would ultimately pop off harder, we need to see a breakdown of the BTC dominance. So when we see a watershed moment, kind of like this one right here, that's when money flows from Bitcoin into alts. We have not seen that yet. The Bitcoin dominance is literally telling us that Bitcoin is still in the spotlight right now. So money is not heavily on the alts yet, but when it is, we suspect the grayscale trusts are going to start popping off pretty hard. And Bitcoin itself, I mean, it's still pretty much range bound. It's not really moving. It's kind of stuck between 74,000 and I would say mainly about 61,000. So not up, not down yet. We don't have any real move yet. I did tell you guys that there's 2 scenarios here that, 3 scenarios that could play out. Number one, which I think is the least likely scenario, is that Bitcoin just starts screaming towards all-time highs straight after the halving. We have a left translated cycle. And then, let's say we have our crypto mania top by the end of the year. I don't think that's likely because, again, Bitcoin's price has gone up to new all-time highs before the halving, which is kind of accelerated. We don't usually see that until the end of the year. Going into like the first quarter of next year is when we're supposed to see it. So I think likely there's going to be a pullback, kind of a cool-off phase. And then towards the end of the year, we start running up to the true all-time highs, which is scenario number 2. I think that's probably the most likely. And then kind of a middle of the range would be that we don't necessarily go up or down. We just kind of bob around sideways in between a certain price range. Let's say that the top is 74K and the bottom is 59K. So we just kind of don't really go up, don't really go down. Bitcoin just kind of bobs around for 6 months between 59 to 74K. Doesn't really do much. EMAs creep back up and kind of get closer to price action, and all the indicators reset. The risk is reset in the market, and then by the end of the year, the halving would have taken place, and we start smashing the all-time highs. That's also a possibility too. I would say that's kind of a little bit more mid-range though. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed the content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.